anywhere is not the interest of Tinubu. This whole thing is a smoke screen. And of course, yeah, when the North cries wolf, some of us will probably just want to see them even cry more as the consequences of their born to rule mentality. But in the process, you are burning yourselves too. Today, the policies of Tinubu, they have rendered people poorer, wretched. And it doesn't matter where you come from. No one is spared. So there's no point in staying or acting aloof. You hear that? Okay, if all of you are suspecting that it's going to bring in Alpha Beta, okay, maybe the National Assembly should amend the section of that law. They are not denying the fact that it is there, a third party can be empowered to collect taxes for them. They are not denying that. He's only saying that he proposed at the committee level that we should try and make it a law that the government cannot employ a third party, because presently it is a practice. They employ third parties to collect taxes. Most of the taxes are never remitted. That is what he is now saying he's trying to stop. I'm going to try and stop the people collecting the taxes and not remitting them, because they're like multiple, quadruple taxes, so many taxes that people are being charged left, right, and center, but the money never even make it to the cover. So if we can reduce all these taxes and make sure that you know, the ones that are being collected, right, they make it to the end, then the sharing ratio will be presently, right? Presently, the sharing arrangement in Nigeria is that they have the one they call the equality, they have the one they call the derivation, and then they have the one again, the derivation, equality, population. Okay, so presently they use population, right, as equality, population, and derivation. So derivation is 50%, equality is 20%, population is 30%. So if you have a population, right, you will get 30% of the, you get the 30% of the money based on your population size. Sure, you get. So, but what they are now proposing is that you know, equality. I think equality will be 50%. Okay, you know what? There's a part I'm going to share that with you. Okay. So one of the persons who is speaking on this is that Taiwo Oyedele. So, and I was talking about the concerns of the North, who are campaigning seriously that Tinubu want to exterminate them. He want to, you know, he want to pie them. Here is Oyedele answering some of their concerns. Now he's already dressing like them. Here you get, he's dressing like them to appease them in the North. Listen.
And we're not looking at any regions. We think everybody will benefit.
Okay, there are those who have brought up the issue of equity, which also your reform is trying to address. They cite issues such as the North isn't producing as much. They've been bedeviled by insecurity. Some people have even limited this conversation to alcohol consumption and destruction versus agricultural produce. So if you can explain that further to explain where the equity comes in here. And, you know, speaking to what you've just said, I wonder why Lagos even agreed. Lagos should be the one throwing tantrums, but Lagos agreed. Yet the North is not agreeing. But speak to that conversation about the equity. Where is the equity in all of this?
Yeah, I don't think it's about whether Lagos agreed. I think Lagos is just more understanding. Because for them, if you do the correction, they'll lose out. But if you increase the amount you share based on derivation, they get a bit of that back. So the impact of them should be moderate. But in terms of the equity, so again, this is why it's important to always speak to data. Yeah. So people would say, well, they don't allow alcohol in the North, they don't allow tobacco, and then they're sharing the VAT. But guess what? The contribution of tobacco, alcohol to VAT is less than 3%. Just about 2-point-something%. So it's very minimal. It's minimal. That's the first point. The second point is when it comes to food, we have more food production coming from the North, and food is exempt from VAT. Our proposal is going to make it 0 VAT, so you even remove any traces of VAT at all. But for us, we said, why are we recognizing the contribution of every state based on the VAT we've collected, rather than the production that they have made? So there's no law by the United Nations or anybody that says you must count the VAT. We're saying, why don't we count the value of the production? So that becomes the derivation, which we then use as a basis to share the VAT. And this is the most equitable and fair approach that you can even think of. Because take Benue, for example, they produce a lot of food. We said, don't charge VAT on food so that people can be able to afford it. Why do you then punish Benue for producing food for us to eat? If you get to a point where states are enacting their VAT law, Benue will be forced to put VAT on food, and all of us will be in trouble, particularly the poorest people. So we feel that the approach is going to help. And it's not correct when people say that there's no production in the north. That's not what the data is showing us. The largest items that contribute to VAT in Nigeria are telecommunication, you have cement, you have sugar. These items, soft drinks, these items are, in most cases, more heavily consumed in the north, more than even the south. You have a fair share of that distribution across Nigeria. So we don't want it to be a regional conversation because it is not. That's not what the data is showing us. But in addition to that, we have this 5% that we ask the federal government to cede to states. And we believe that can be available as a stabilization transfer to ensure that any state that has significant shortfall in their revenue as a result of our proposal can then be compensated from that stabilization fund.
In other words, the federal government takes 10% as against the
Instead
current
of
15% they're getting.
Yes.
But let me ask you, I mean, the bills passed second reading on the floor of the Senate today. It's not yet Uhuru. It's a long journey to go. What do you envisage as it enters the public hearing stage? Do you envisage a situation where perhaps you'll be forced to change?
If you believe them, you're on your own. I've heard people who have said, oh, this guy, you see that guy, Taiwo Oyedele, is a brilliant chap. Like he is if you go and check his CV, when it comes to taxation, he's a brilliant chap. And somebody like that is a perfect criminal to use by the likes of Tinubu. Because he can sit down and use all the taxation terminologies to finish una. Una go just sit down there and be like, okay. Wow. Wow. You'll be sounding like an ambulance listening to him. It is only when it comes to that implementation that you will realize that you have been scammed and there is no coming back from that. Do you understand? The guy said they must not increase the VAT. When Nigeria was under Bukwari in 2017, they were proposing to increase the VAT back then from 5% to 7.5%. So he said that you cannot be taxing the poor in that regard. He said a lot. But right now, he's proposing that the VAT from January, from next month, is currently 7.5%, it's going to 10%. Then by June next year, it's going to go to maybe 15%. Before the end of next year, it is likely going to go to 20%. But it's now telling them that we are removing some certain stuff from VAT. You won't pay VAT on them. And some mumus, they are doing wow. Wow. Oh, wow. APC, Egbekebe, is telling you something that it is in your favor. It is in your interest, and you believe it. You want to believe it. You dey trust man. Oju abo, you go hear am. Again, I am going to possibly be the last person that you want to hear this truth from. Because most of what I will tell you, they are not things that are probably happening yet. They are things that will happen later. And then you look back and be like, no wonder Mayegun was skeptical about the whole thing, because it's fraud. It is like a fraud hidden in plain sight. It is in your interest. It is for your own good. This country needs a reform. This country needs a but they are spending like a drunk sailor. They are spending money. They do not have any fiscal discipline. You are watching them frittering away your commonwealth. But they are telling you that they are doing reform to balance fiscal, kiniko, and you believe them. You do. Fine. One of the guys invited to, because the first day they passed it at the National Assembly. So sorry, the day they passed the second reading. One of the guys who spoke was Seriake Dixon. He's from Bayelsa State, former Bayelsa governor. According to him, because they gave all of them the copy, they all have the staff to advise them on the bill, on the 4 bills, right? And according to him, he said, whether you like it or not, we are going to pass it. Yeah, we are going to pass it. Heaven will not fall. That is true. If Tinubu removed fuel subsidy, heaven will not fall. Now people just they die slowly. Seriake Dixon.
Rivers State is about 11,000 something. Very small difference. So what they did was to split the state, the old River State, our old River State, into almost 2 equal parts. Now, what is Bayelsa is 8 local governments. Bayelsa is like 4 times Lagos State, the landmass.
Landmass, yeah.
4 times. People don't know. Bayelsa is like, there are some states in the southeast that Bayelsa is like 3 times the landmass and the water bodies. But yet, 8 local governments. So I just wanted that clarification. Now, if you are talking of benefits and fairness, as I told my colleagues in both the closed session and the plenary, look, we go by what is fair and what is right. And they all know that about me. What is right, we will support it. What has to be opposed in the national interest. And I always advise that we do so not from a narrow ethnic or religious perspective. But let us disagree as national leaders, as national players. Because in the National Assembly, we are national leaders, okay? Now, look at this. The scenario now is that if you look at the sharing formula, the old formula, there are 2 ways to look at it. The first is the one from up to down. The state, local governments take 35%. States are taking, local governments are taking 35%. States, with your existing formula, the states will now take the rest, and then the federal government takes 15. You understand? Now, the new proposal is that states, it will change a little. States will now take 50%. And then the states, the LGs will now retain their 35%. The federal own has been reduced from 15 to 10. So between you and I disagree with that. And those are issues when we come, we will sort out. Okay? I think that the federation has a lot of challenges, and this is not the time to reduce.
There are 2 things.
Okay? Now, when you come to the other one that is shared across the states, which is where I think some concerns are being raised, I think. The existing formula is that what is going to the states, they share it 50% on the basis of equality of states. Okay? All states equally. Then they now take 30% on the basis of population. Okay? And then the remaining 20%, they do it on derivation. That's the existing formula. What is being proposed, the section on this, what is being proposed, and I think that's where some concerns are being raised, where states say it could affect their revenue. And that concern is not a wrong concern. It's a legitimate conversation.
So the governors have
yes.
legitimately...
This is a democracy. I believe in consensus building, networking, consultation, agreement and disagreement in the national interest. Okay? Now, in that new formula that is proposed, Remember, 50% was for equality of states. Now, what is being proposed is that 60% will go to derivation. That is, states producing. They get 60% of what you produce.
Yeah.
Okay? 20% on equality and 20% on population. That is what is contained. Now, I don't see anything unfair in this. Remember, I'm a federalist. And if you follow the doctrines of federalism, what it means is that states that produce, we're talking of tax revenue for God's sake. And VAT that everybody is talking about, VAT, as I told my colleagues, it's not a production tax, it's a consumption tax.
Yeah.
In other words, if I'm in Bayelsa and I buy card, I buy cement, Dangote cement or Bua cement, and somebody buys Kai, what it means is that the VAT attendant to it should accrue to the state. Because VAT essentially is a state tax. Because it is a consumption tax. It's not a production tax. What we have done is, because of our peculiar reasons, we have now decided to centralize the collection. And over the years, to enable everyone have some sense of belonging, enable everyone get on food and manage, over the years, they formulated that system by which everybody has a share. But they are not jettisoning it. And the danger is that, there's a challenge. I also raised a lot of those issues as governor. Against FIRS, at the neck, and so on. There is a challenge by some governors at the Supreme Court saying that VAT being a state consumption tax, the states where things are produced and consumed
Should be collecting it.
should collect it and have it all at the Supreme Court. What I think that these legislations are trying to do, if we can build consensus fast enough, okay, and get them passed and signed into law, then it will now have a situation where states can still have the advantage of having 20% on the basis of equality, have another 20% on the basis of population, while the remaining 60% goes to states that have that enjoy it. Now, there's no state that does not generate VAT. Because consumption takes place everywhere.
Let me quickly take you on this one. I mean, by the way, thank you so much for the clarification that you made on
can I just...
But the problem here is this: trust. Even among themselves, they do not trust themselves. Because you see, data Yahweh gone, data stubborn gone. But when it comes to data, with the Tinubu and his gang, they don't really care about data. It is so funny that these same people the same guys that Tinubu told us that now statistics will go shop, they are now the ones trying to make people see reason why that this is going to be your advantage. We can tell you, we'll be the one to tell you how much consumption tax or production tax we are taking from your states. The same criminals who dropped the over 70% unemployment rate, they dropped it to 4.8% by just falsifying the figure and pushing a propaganda on it. The same people, so they are the one you have to actually entrust, like you have to entrust them with giving you the accurate data to say, okay, your consumption tax in Kogi State is 1 billion. The consumption tax for River State is 7 billion. Like, they are the ones you have to trust. They are like saying, trust us. I won't trust them. That's among them though, right? I won't. Because the man himself once said, Shena statistics will go shop.
I think na statistic we go chop. A lie with arithmetic that never, no Indian can solve it.
So the same group of people are now saying, no, don't worry, we can tell you how much alcohol is consumed in Kano, even though officially you are not supposed to consume alcohol in Kano. You get that now? We can give you the data. Don't worry. You see, we are reworking it. I won't trust them though. You know, but they are pushing it. So the last time that they debated it, the second time they passed it in the National Assembly, second reading rather, Barao, Jubri Barao from Kano, the Deputy Senate President, Akpabiole's deputy, was the one on seat then. And the people of Kano, they took it personal. They went after him. They believe that he is one of those being used by Tinubu to further destroy them economically by reducing what they will eventually get. Because as it is right now, most of the company paying some of these consumption taxes, each one, they are making their money from other places, but they are paying their taxes in Lagos. Like Dangote. Dangote is making his money from Ogun State, making his money from Cemento, from Kogi State, Obajana, making his money from a few other places like that. But he pays a huge chunk of taxes in Lagos. A lot of it. So if the data is right, Dangote would have to go and pay it in Kogi. But Dangote, according to this, their new bill, right, doesn't have to go and pay it in Kogi. Tinubu's people will tell you how much money they have taken from Dangote and how much of it is not for Lagos but for Kogi. Trust us. I don't feel like for you. Just trust me, bro. Kind of arrangement. So the Kano people took it personal. They went after Barao. And yeah, somebody has something to say about that here.
85%. But Northern youth say they are angry. Northern leaders say no. Northern Governors Forum say no. How is this a disadvantage for the North? Where do you stand in this matter?
Yeah, you see, first and foremost, the attack by the Northern Youth Assembly is uncalled for because the Deputy Senate President, going by the function and the duties of the Senate President, have to deputize on behalf of the Senate President. And the Deputy Senate President, who was the chairman of the Committee of the Whole and who presided over the proceedings when the bill was passed for second reading, is doing his duties as a Deputy Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So some of these youth were misinformed, and all the attacks, blackmail, mischief-making is politically motivated against the Deputy Senate President. That is my own stand on that aspect. It's no issue of insensitivity against the northern region. So on the issue of the Nigerian tax reform bills, these bills are 4 bills which have been transmitted to the National Assembly for deliberation by the executive arms of government. That is the Nigeria Revenue Joint Vote, Nigeria Tax Administration Establishment Bill, Nigeria Tax Bill, and also Nigeria Tax Administration Bills. All these reforms have been transmitted to the National Assembly for deliberation. All these controversies are avoidable if are being carefully handled. This Northern Governors Forum rejected the new tax reform bills, National Economic Council, which is a composition of the state governors from the northern and the southern extraction, rejected the tax reform bills. Traditional rulers and even northern democratic leagues and other Islamic clerics. But the most important aspect is for a wider consultation. Most of these governors who have been trying to reject or have rejected the new tax reform bills have not deeply go into the details of the bills. The tax administration bill and the tax reform bill